Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps agencies streamline their proposals in the cloud and get faster sign-off.
Welcome to the 12th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer, a podcast where we interview an agency owner, learn valuable lessons, and get a buzz on. This week we're talking to Felicitas Betzl from SERPs Invaders, based out of Spain and Scotland, and she's going to talk to us how they adopted a 4-day work week and use it to retain talent. The data. Okay, I think it's I think the voice is now merging into Hans Moleman from The Simpsons. It's going from like, "Hi there, yeah, I'd like to like, I was saying Boo Earns." Yeah. What do you want to talk about this week?
I'm not sure. It's been a whirlwind.
It has.
I don't know where to start.
Do you know what I finally started doing this week? Because I was always the kind of person who, when I thought about using rules in mail programs, it sounded like too much work to set up, and I didn't know why anyone would want to do it. But I was getting so buried in email lately with like customer tickets and a bunch of other stuff. I was becoming one of those like D-bags who like somebody emails you and they don't email back for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, I've noticed that about you.
It's just getting a lot to handle. So I finally did it. I finally set some rules in Mac Mail. It's working out really well too.
Well, you showed me how to do it.
Yeah,
it was great. I've been doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you have to, because now they go directly into there. You got to make sure you go into that area to make sure that you respond.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great. I mean, it's fantastic, actually.
Yeah, at least it organizes it for you.
Yeah.
And then stuff like newsletters and things that you don't need to respond to, just go in one place and you can review them whenever you want.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Welcome to 1998. I don't know. How long have rules been around?
It's new to me.
Yeah. So what do we want to do this week? Well, we have got an interview coming up with Felicitas Betzl, and she's going to talk to us about managing a 4-day work week with employees, how that's all going to work. So we had a good chat with her. Yeah,
we had met her a while back, too.
Yeah. Well, we blundered her interview.
Yeah, there was a technical problem, but it was nice going into this one already kind of knowing what she was about.
Yeah.
And so it actually, I think, is one of our best.
Yeah. Not too often we get like 2 takes for an interview, so we know what not to talk about. We know what to talk about. Yeah, it's pretty good. So what I want to talk about right now, before we get into the interview, we started a new segment where we answer questions from listeners. And so we've got 2 good questions this week. And by the way, if you have a question you want to have us answer on the show, send it to Kyle@proposify.biz and ask your question. Leave an audio recording would be great if you can, so that way we can play it on the show, and then we'll answer it. So let's go into these 2. So we have a question that says, what are the key differences between traditional agencies and digital agencies? I would sort of break it down into philosophy, tools, and skills. So here's what I mean by that. If you run a traditional agency, generally their philosophy with how they approach work is that they think mostly about the brand, creative execution, ideas. They usually talk about like ideas being the big value that they offer their clients. And so they usually see it in their work as, they pay a lot of attention to really clever headlines, really high production imagery, and, their sort of KPI or their, key performance indicator is, are they winning awards? That's a big measure of success, because really, if you're putting out billboards and TV ads and radio, I mean, there's ways to kind of track it, but it's always a little bit of a guessing game. So a lot of them measure their success by are they winning prestigious awards, and they kind of use that clout to sell back to clients, get more clients.
And what you're saying in a polite way is very egocentric.
Yeah, maybe so. That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Put that in.
Yeah, and so when you look at the tools they're using, most of them are using TV, radio, print, web, PR. They're using a lot of different mediums to get the message across, and web tends to be a bit of an afterthought, like you said, a bolt-on. And then the skills that they're looking for is usually the teams are made up of primarily account managers, copywriters, and designers. Those are sort of the, what most of the team is made up of. And so generally what I've seen anyway is that usually the people who run these agencies, the owners, come from a very advertising-centric background. And generally the web is, they talk about the web a little bit, but they don't really get it. So take that. Anyone who runs a traditional agency. They still exist, though. Mm. But I see a lot of what we think of traditional agencies, like the, Leo Burnett's and the Saatchi and Saatchi's, and even, locally in your own respective city, there's got to be smaller agencies that are very traditional. They usually try to say they're digital agencies, or they try to grow into digital because they realize that's where the eyeballs are these days. But it's hard. So to move into the difference between what I would call a digital agency is there's a fundamental difference in how they look at their work. So usually digital agencies focus a lot on content, a lot on data, and results. Everybody likes to say they get results, but a digital agency can actually track results and find out what's working because everything they're producing is online. So you can very easily tell, what's translating into sales. And typically awards aren't as important to them. They might win Webby here and there, but it's mostly about delivering results to clients. The tools they use, obviously websites and mobile and SEO and all that stuff's important, but if you go into a traditional agency, they usually don't look at email, for instance, as being a big driver of revenue for clients, when really email is a huge, there's a huge return on investment with email. It's sometimes seen as it's not very sexy, it's kind of old school. But really, if you're running a totally online campaign collecting email addresses, email is still one of the most effective tools. And traditional agencies generally don't utilize that in the right way.
You know what a good question would be to put out to our listeners is maybe you ran a traditional agency that morphed into a digital by necessity, or how hard is it for a traditional agency to kind of... Because you mentioned earlier, you said they call themselves digital agencies often, a traditional one, but I'm sure a lot of them has successfully built a digital arm or kind of morphed into that. It'd be interesting to see that transition.
Yeah, I'm sure they're out there. We're coming from a perspective of, like you said, we're a little bit jaded maybe, but I haven't really, every big agency that's traditionally been traditional, running TV and radio and print, very rarely have I seen one that's actually executing digital in the way that maybe a newer digital agency would. Because most of the true digital agencies are the founders, the people running it, the principals are marketers themselves or web designers, or they're very, they don't even think about as much the traditional stuff. And maybe a balance is good. Maybe that's where some traditional agencies are a little bit weaker, is they're not thinking about the brand and the creative concepts and the really high production photography and all that stuff that you associate more with traditional. Okay, well, moving on, let's talk about the next question. So this is a question about hiring salespeople. How early should you hire a salesperson if you're starting an agency? Finding new clients, it's obviously one of the most challenging aspects of running an agency. And unlike some businesses where you can just, you've got very predictable sales channels. If you put, $10,000 or $5,000, whatever amount into ads here, that will yield a certain amount of customers at the end of the day. It doesn't really work like that with agencies, right? So at what point should you hire a salesperson, or should you at all?
Well, as Mr. Swank says, the best salesperson is the founder or the people running the agency. If I remember that podcast, he talked about that. It's hard to hire people specifically for sales and in the agency world.
Yeah, he usually tells people to fire them.
Yep.
You know, people that come to him that are struggling, if they've got salespeople, he says first thing to do is fire them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not good news if you happen to be a salesperson at an agency.
No, in the agencies I worked at, I mean, it was the account people. They were really close to the brand, and they were really good salespeople, especially at upselling and continuing to sell ideas and new technologies and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I'm sure. Then we interviewed someone, I can't remember who it was, way back at the beginning, who actually that was his role, was sales.
That's right. Yeah. From Gravitate, I think.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're slightly bigger company too. Yeah, I don't think the thing is that you shouldn't hire them, but I think it was Flint. It was Flint we talked to a few episodes back, and he primarily is a BD guy at an agency. I don't know, I think the difference is too that he, I think, had a lot of agency experience, might have been a marketer, or, you know, knew the business. I think the problem comes from sometimes when you're so loud. I hope that doesn't come through.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're looking at a salesperson, it's really hard to find the right fit, because you might have somebody who has a lot of connections or is, you know, out there talking to a lot of people, but they aren't necessarily the best fit for your agency, and they're going to bring in the wrong type of business. Because the thing is, too, especially if they're working off commission, they're desperate to just make a sale, so they don't really care who the client is, and they're going to bring in every stray off the street, right? Every stray cat is going to come in, and they're going to
let's have a lunch with so and so, and a lot of those traditional guys out there thinking they can sell digital when they should be selling cars.
Yeah, used cars. Yeah, too much Glengarry Glen Ross in there.
Yes,
lowering prices and
well, coffee is for closers, as you know.
Exactly. So I would say you should wait for quite a while to hire a salesperson. I think the agency owner should be the primary salesperson at the beginning. And it's not until you get to a reasonable enough size where you really know what you're selling. Because I think that's the problem, is people who are starting like their first agency and it's only them and maybe an employee here and there. You can't bring a salesperson in at that point. Because they just... It's too early for them to really know who the agency is and what it is they're selling. They haven't defined a niche yet.
True.
So I would say, if you are going to hire somebody, hire somebody who's already knows the game. You know, don't hire somebody who hasn't worked in an agency. And I think really it's best if you find somebody who maybe has a design background or a development background or a marketing background, because then they can talk the talk. I think people know when they're talking to salespeople, because they know that somebody who's going to hire your agency is hiring them for their expertise, ideally, and not just to execute work. So you want to find somebody who actually has some real insight.
And at the beginning, why not kill two birds with one stone? And like our previous podcast, where account management doesn't mix with project management. So find a good account manager, and they're also, that kind of really is business development also. I mean, really, they're both one and the same in an agency.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. And to your point, I think you should really make them a part of the team. Because if your salesperson is out there, shaking hands and kissing babies all the time, if they're not integrated as part of your team, then they'll feel out of place. They'll come in every now and then to have meetings, and your designers and your developers will be like, who the fuck is that? They just know that there's some guy that comes in every now and then, and it's going to be really hard to build any sort of team around that.
Agreed. Yep.
So I would say, the salesperson should be respectable. As a consultant, people will respect their opinion, again, because they're not just a salesperson. They bring something else to the table, whether that's account management or whatnot. And I think that they could also mentor maybe the less experienced team members, Include them if you're going out for Friday beers. Include them in production meetings. Then they can get a gauge on, do they need to step on the gas pedal and bring in work because all our projects are wrapping up, or is the team really full with lots of work? Maybe they should just nurture existing relationships and not focus as much on lead generation. So I think that's just one of the reasons why you would want them part of the team. I also this kind of goes back to what Carmen said about knowing when to get them involved, because like Carmen shared some thoughts with us last week, if you haven't heard it, and it was really about that whoever you bring in as that salesperson, they're not going to do everything. They're going to go out and do a lot of lead generation, but you as the agency owner need to close the business. So you can't have the salesperson bringing you in too early on client meetings, but they haven't really evaluated. They're not at the end stage of closing the deal.
That's a talent in itself, is sifting through and pre-qualifying the people that come through, so you're not wasting the time of maybe upper level management, the owner. But when you have a hot lead that's coming in, has a total need, then you kind of segue let the owner step in and have a meeting and have them close it.
Yeah. We've seen this before, and I think we've talked about it, that some salespeople that we've hired have filled our calendars up with lunches, and here's somebody you should have lunch with, here's somebody you should have lunch with, and we all have lunch together. And that's just the biggest time waster you can imagine.
Big time.
So don't hire a salesperson who's going to do that thing and just think that by introducing you to people that they're really doing their job, because they're not. They should be finding you people who are just about ready to sign on as a client and have you meet them at that stage.
Yeah, we've been through it, so we lived it.
Yeah. And the final point would be, to monitor their activity and their results, right? So when you've got a salesperson out there all day having lunches and going to events and doing whatever they do, it can be hard to monitor, are they actually bringing in results? I guess if clients come in the door. But just like in the same way you monitor your team's activity, you've got timesheets and you check and make sure people are putting in work and that their hours are billable. I would say have a system in place for your salesperson, like having a CRM that they use and being able to track how many contacts they're putting in and what kind of detailed notes they're leaving to see that they're doing something.
Yeah, and a true salesperson actually wants to go on commission.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because they know they're a great salesperson and they're going to sell and they're going to do well. It's results driven. Mm-hmm. If you get a salesperson that says, "Well, I want a nice salary. I don't want I don't even need a bonus, or you can give me a bonus," but a true salesman to get off the ground, maybe they to get started, maybe they take a draw versus a commission or a small salary. But at the end of the day, you have to go in and monitor the CRM. But I mean, if they're doing their job, we shouldn't have to, because they should be hitting their quotas and then some.
I don't know. I think, here's a good discussion, right? Because the thing about commission is that if you are primarily commission-based, it goes back to that idea of they're going to bring in whatever they can to get that commission. Because you don't want them... this isn't like an impulse buy industry. Like if your salesperson goes a period of time without closing a deal, it doesn't necessarily mean it's time to fire that person, because they could bring in 20 new projects the month after. I would say it's a long-term investment that could take months to pay off. And the thing is, if you give them, obviously some commission or some bonus, but too much commission, I think maybe in another industry could help you. But I don't know. Wouldn't that hurt you if they're making just pure commission that they need to close like crazy? They're going to want to bring in projects that might not be a good fit.
But then that's going to force them to bring in the right projects, because they're going to put some time, their own time investment into it, and then you're going to say, sorry, that's the wrong project. I'm not going to sit in that meeting. You got to go out and find the right projects. You should be listening more, and you should be understanding what we're about, or go sell cars.
Man, you're hardcore, Kevin.
I'm a little jaded. After what we went through. So bottom line, even through these podcasts, we talk to people. I mean, it's in Jason Swank. I really agree with him completely now. I don't think for the right, like that one guy we interviewed, I mean, he sounds like he's successfully developing business for that company and that agency. And remember, he was in the agency in another role. He understands it.
Yeah.
But just to hire a salesperson that's just a salesperson from another industry is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a totally different way of thinking about sales. Yeah. Well, we hope that was valuable to you. Would love to know what you think. Do you disagree with us? Do you agree? Leave a comment on the site, and we'll get your thoughts on that. So now, let's jump into our interview with Felicitas Betzl. I'd like to welcome Felicitas Betzl from SERPs Invaders, with 2 offices, one based in Gibraltar, Spain, and the other in Edinburgh, Scotland. She runs a full-service, multilingual digital marketing agency. Welcome back to the program, Feli.
Hi there, and thanks for having me, Kyle and Kevin. How are you today?
We're doing great. Thanks for being on again, because we had you on, I think, a month and a half ago, and then we screwed up the audio track.
Well, it was strange because like the first maybe 25% of it recorded and the rest didn't, but that's all my fault. I'm the producer, so I'll take the blame. I'm sorry.
Kevin was suspended without pay for 3 days. But we're not going to do that this time. So the sad thing was we had a great interview. We talked about a lot of cool different things. So there's so much that's unique with your agency, and we're going to talk about all of that. But I wanted to just kind of start out by maybe you telling the listeners, your background, how you started SERPs Invaders, and what you guys do.
Of course, thanks. Okay, so I've been working in marketing for 17 years, and I guess now for 12 years in digital marketing. Myself working on the client side for companies like Hilton International, as well as on a number of digital marketing agencies, mainly in the UK, but also in Germany and Spain. I started SERPs Invaders about, we are now in our 5th year, so 4.5 years ago, really with the focus on the multilingual digital marketing, and specifically cross-channel digital marketing strategies. So because I really saw that there was specifically in the UK a need to really offer that service to prospective clients who wanted to really reach global audiences.
So maybe just clarify, when you say multi-channel, are you just talking about, SEO, email, content, paid, like just all the different marketing channels at your disposal?
Yes, definitely. So we cover generally search engine optimization, content strategies, as well as link building, paid search, email marketing. We're doing a little bit of SMS marketing now as well, and social media obviously as well.
Cool.
And that's the one side to the business. And then we also have our creative director and partner in the business, Rory Curry, who looks after our digital design, digital app and UI design side of the business, which is quite a bit smaller than the marketing side.
Yeah, and I imagine they go hand in hand. You need to produce a landing page for, an SEO campaign, and you've got the design capabilities in-house to do that, so it all plays together nicely.
Exactly. Specifically because we've started doing a lot more conversion rate optimization as well. So that's coming quite handy for us.
Yeah, and what you guys offer as far as multilingual is very unique. I mean, I've never heard of a digital agency having those capabilities in house, or maybe one of 2 languages. But especially when you're building content for people and SEO and social media, so much of it's of course based around language. So how does that work in your agency? How many different languages do you support, and do you have one person for each language? Maybe just, walk us through that process a little bit.
Sure. In overall, we can cover up to 35 languages.
Whoa. How is that possible?
Yeah, obviously we're a fairly small agency, so we can't cover all those languages in-house. So at the moment we've got a fairly small team, but in-house we can probably cover most of the European languages except for maybe Scandinavia. So we also have basically we have a large pool of trusted associates, as well as partner companies for some of the more exotic languages like Chinese or Russian, so on.
I think one of the reasons Kyle mentioned that we don't see it that much is because in North America here, at least Canada has 2 languages. I was raised in the U.S. It's just, of course, just English. So,
well, Spanish too, right?
Yeah. I mean, but I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure some of your competitors in Europe and whatnot, most agencies must be multilingual. Am I right there?
It's increasing. It's definitely is increasing as people are moving a lot around a lot more as well. It's become a lot within Europe specifically. Yeah.
And what would the type of clients who would look at the fact that you support 35 languages? What kind of clients would that be a big selling point for? A big point of differentiation for you guys? So
it would be companies, for example, that have already are quite successful in maybe the UK or the US market, and who want to reach out into European markets like France or Germany. This is what we see quite typically for American and UK companies, that those are the markets they want to dive into first within Europe, just I think because they're quite large markets and also haven't been affected too much by the recession. Wow. So we have these kind of clients, and obviously as well agencies, either SEO agencies or digital marketing agencies that are lacking the multilingual background in-house, or design agencies who just don't have any marketing experience. And sometimes we just help clients to improve. They might have already a web presence in a specific country, and we just help them to really improve that.
Cool. So one thing I wanted to talk about is this idea of a 4-day work week, because I know that's something that your agency adopted, where nobody works on Fridays, and you kind of pack it into 4 days. So I'd love to know where you came up with that idea, how long you've been doing it for, and how it's working out for you guys.
Okay, sure. That's definitely a topic I love talking about, because we've just recently been nominated by The Guardian for the Smarter Working Award. And so we've had quite a lot of buzz around the fact that we are the first ever agency in Scotland to introduce the 4-day week.
How many? Well. So you guys were shortlisted to 3, and how many applied for this?
For our category, there were 150 entries. Whoa. So we're pretty happy about the results.
Congratulations.
So in June, there will be the awards ceremony, and we'll find out whether we've won or not. But I think even just being nominated is a great achievement for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so why do you think it was that you were shortlisted? Because it plays into this 4-day work week and being efficient and all that good stuff.
Sure. So just to go back to your previous question, we did introduce the 4-day week in September 2013. I'm a big fan of the guys from Basecamp, former Signal, 37 Signals. Mm-hmm. I think they've gone back to just calling themselves Basecamp now.
Yeah.
So I think they've kind of introduced that as well. I've also seen that in London, in the UK, there are a few agencies who have adopted that. the 4-day week. And basically, since we are a small agency, I really wanted to try and create a better work-life balance for my employees. And we also wanted to differentiate ourselves from other agencies. And I'm also trying to look at how can we attract and retain talent, really. Specifically for a smaller agency, I think it's really important because specifically where we are based, our headquarters in Edinburgh, there are one of the largest agency, I think even within Europe, is based there. So we've got quite big competition.
So with the 4-day work week, do you pack more hours into those 4 days in order to take Friday off?
We do. In Scotland, there's our staff work 37.5 hours, and those are just spread out over 4 days. So, which is also really good in terms of customer service, because the staff are also able to work flexibly. So we've got some staff who love to get up very, very early in the morning. I'm not one of those people, but
me neither. It's okay. Kevin is, though. He's an early bird.
So we have people starting at as early as maybe 7 in the morning, but then we also have coverage until a lot later as well, because at the moment one of my staff also works from Florida, because people are also able to take their jobs with them.
Yeah. So in addition to having essentially 3-day weekend every weekend, people are free to work. They don't have to be in the office. They can work remotely. They
can, and that has been proven quite successful. But while we're still talking about the 4-day week, I just wanted, because I don't think I answered your question, why you think we got shortlisted.
Sure. Yeah.
Over the year and a half that we've been doing the 4-day week now, sick leave has reduced by 95%, actually, because I feel the 3-day weekend, people really can disconnect and relax and recharge the batteries. I think, the numbers don't lie, so it's really quite an amazing achievement, I think. And people's overtime also was reduced between 90 and 95% in comparison to before. Wow. Because now, even when we get client requests quite late in the day, because we work slightly longer hours, we can still service these without having to do any overtime.
That's great. And what happens on Friday? So do you ever get any Friday, calls from clients going, where are you guys? I need something done.
I think we had this once, only once in the 1.5 years on a Friday, and once quite late on a Thursday. But I think we only had to work twice on a Friday for a few hours. So I think, our clients know that we are not available on a Friday, but that we can be if needs be. Obviously, sometimes there's a campaign that needs to be launched, or we actually have one client who has very regularly weekend campaigns. So, but we just they know that they just need to plan a little bit better themselves as well, and we help them with that.
Let me ask, typically with an agency, especially when you're doing creative work, it's very collaborative, right? And you've got to have other people on the team, bouncing ideas off each other and working closely together. Does that, and I guess I'm shifting more towards the remote work, more so than the 4-day work week concept. Does that ever hurt collaboration or creativity to kind of have? Because I know. I'll speak for ourselves. When Kevin and I ran an agency, we all alternated. So 1 year we didn't have an office, and everybody worked remotely. And then the year after, we got an office, and people mostly worked in the office. Although a lot of people still worked kind of remotely when the need arose. But one thing I found, especially within a design agency, I guess, and maybe it's the same with a marketing agency, is that the tendency can happen where people work in silos. And sometimes, because we're not always aware of what people are working on, you're not like walking by their desk and looking at their screen. Sometimes somebody can be like off in the wrong direction or working on a project they don't really need to be working on. It's not as pressing as another one. So being together in the same room really helps discussion. You'll have those meetings that you wouldn't necessarily have if you scheduled a phone call. Do you know what I mean? How do you guys overcome that, or is that even an issue for you guys?
No, I completely understand this, and to begin with, it was a little bit tricky for me because I'm someone who always likes to have an overview of what's happening. So we actually have been using kind of shared spreadsheets with people's schedules, daily schedules, and things like that. So you can just drop in, have a look at that spreadsheet, see what people are working on. We also have kind of smaller catch-ups on a daily basis, depending. We're always on Skype, but the kind of knowing what people are working on a daily basis on their schedules, that's been quite helpful.
Yeah.
So the kind of the project managers or the team leaders can take a look at that spreadsheet, and then if they see somebody's working on something that's not the right priority for that day or shouldn't be done, then that can be moved.
Yeah.
We're actually just trialing out a software called Pulse, which seems to be pretty good for this kind of collaboration and task assignment.
I haven't heard of Pulse before. Is that like a project management software or something else?
Yeah, it's a project management software, and it's quite colorful, and my staff really like it. We've only just been trialing out. We've just been using the trial version at the moment, but I think we're going to get a paid version for it.
How would it differ from kind of usually the standard many people think of for project management software is Basecamp? How would it sort of compare to Basecamp?
It's a little bit different because it's probably because we used to have spreadsheets for our daily schedules. Right. So it's got a similar format to that, but because we have different clients, so you can color code quite nicely. And you can assign a certain task to more than one person within it, and you just see everything on one screen, really, which is quite nice. I still like Basecamp. I think I would just use the Pulse internally for an agency. I think Basecamp is great because we use that for our clients and for client communication. So I just think for scheduling, it seems pretty good because you can assign statuses, you add comments, and there are some really little nice icons as well.
Cool. So check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
So have you ever had, and I'm sure we've all had at some point, maybe an employee who just couldn't work productively when they're remote? Do you ever find that it just comes up where somebody's like, I just can't, I'm too busy like doing the dishes and laundry and walking my dog. I just can't. I need to be in an office. I need to have an overlord sitting on my shoulders. You know what I mean? Does that ever come up, or is that something you kind of weed out early on before you hire them?
Yeah, when we're hiring specifically for different languages, and the people are abroad, we definitely need to speak to them about that. But there are also options that staff that are remote, that they can work from hot desking or the co-working places. But so far I've actually not come across it, to be honest. Often people say, they're a lot more productive when they work from home. But I mean, we do have, most of our staff are in the Edinburgh office, so we do have a base there.
Yeah. And actually I had read that SERPs Invaders was you were the first Scottish agency to introduce the 4-day work week, and that was in, how long ago?
It was in September 2013, so yeah, more than 2.5 years ago now.
Wow. I've read about this thing that's called duvet days. I always think of duvets as covers. So can you explain to me what's a duvet day?
A duvet day.
Duvet? It has a V in it. Why can I...
A duvet? No, I think it's probably just my accent.
Oh. There you go. I've embarrassed myself once again.
Okay, so we introduced the duvet days, I think earlier in the year. Mainly because it's not so much for maybe people who are based in the sunnier countries, but Scotland, well, as you might know, it does rain a lot there. So when there is actually a sunny day, sometimes you sit in the office and you think, oh, I could be going out for a walk, or I could be taking the afternoon off and enjoy the sunshine. So I introduced the fact that people can take really ad hoc holidays as short notice as the same day. Obviously, keeping in mind client requirements, deadlines, and things like that. But yeah, so every member of staff has a certain allowance per year to take ad hoc holiday of their holiday allowance.
That's awesome. So they don't need to schedule it 3 months in advance or anything.
No,
which you see in a lot of places, especially bigger places.
Sure. No, so it's really, you could call in the same day in the morning and say, wow, the sun is shining. I don't want to go to work today, and it's fine.
We've been having that kind of week. It's been beautiful, like most of the week here, and we're in Nova Scotia, so that's like New Scotland, literally.
Yeah.
So we have the same problem. It's the weather's unpredictable, lots of rain, before lots of snow. So it's a good idea. And you're spending time in Spain right now, in Barcelona, right?
I am, yes, because we're at the moment thinking of opening an office here later this year. Wow. Just because Barcelona is also a really interesting city. It's here are a lot of international tech startups. So I think that would be a lot of great prospective clients. But Barcelona is such an international city as well, so it attracts a lot of international talent. So I'm hoping to find more staff here as well, because we're looking to recruit more this year.
Wow, you're taking over Europe.
Slowly but surely.
3 offices.
Do you have any? Do you ever get over to North America, to Canada or the U.S.? Do you ever travel over?
Actually, my partner's family live in Los Angeles, so I've been there a couple of times. I've been to New York, but I've never been to Canada. Actually, it's definitely on my list.
Big country too, so there's lots of different places to see. I mean, there's been people who have never been to the East Coast, but they've been to the West Coast, and that sort of thing.
She'd probably love Montreal.
Yeah,
it's great.
Montreal's really cool. And you have, I read that you had some staff members say one has family in Florida, so they travel to Florida, and they, instead of taking vacation to go see their family, they just work from there.
Yeah, that's right. One of our staff members, she's over there at the moment. She's now in her 3rd month. Yeah, she's going to come back soon.
Wow, with the tan, no doubt.
No doubt, yeah.
Great. Well, I wanted to thank you for being willing to do the interview again.
No trouble at all.
This one definitely recorded.
Yes.
So I appreciate you being on, and yeah, hopefully you'll be on again. And best of luck with your agency and all the good stuff that's happening.
Yeah, can you keep us in the loop as to how things go in June at the award ceremony?
Of course, and well, thank you very much for having me again. And yeah, of course I will keep you informed about that, and I will also drop you a note about this project management tool that we've been checking out, because I think it might be quite interesting for other agency owners as well.
Absolutely. We'll post a link to that.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Right.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Take 2.
Take 2 of the interview with Feely.
That was a good interview.
Yes.
They're all good.
She's a firecracker. I mean, man, opening up 3 offices, eh? It's hard enough to keep one going.
True entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, well, good for her. We hope she wins that award that she's shortlisted for. We have a link to that in the show notes. We talked about it in the interview. So, yeah, good luck to her there. And, yeah, hopefully she'll be on again. So, I guess we'll sign off on this rainy, dreary Halifax afternoon.
Yes, think of warmth.
We had a pretty good weekend, though.
Yeah, we did. Good
couple of days. So
yeah.
this is the time of year where we're all reminded why we live in Nova Scotia, because we forget for about 6 months in the winter months. So anyway, hope you love this episode. Once again, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes, on the show on iTunes, and also send in your questions. We want to hear from you. So thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.
Goodbye.